There's a little red thing. All right, ready to roll. So today's Daf Kuf Chaf Gimel, the Masech Shabbos. I want to try and get down to those if you have to sign off early or leave early. I want to try and get to the Mishnah on the top of the next Amud or the next Daf. So we left off, we were discussing cases of nuts, using a hammer. Question is, what type of hammer are we using? Are we using a hammer that was made for nut cracking, or is it even a hammer that was made for using for other trades, which are forbidden on Shabbos, but to use it for permissible usage would be mutter? So that was the machlokas we saw. So Eisvei by L'Rabba. So second line on Kuf Chaf Gimel Amud Aleph. So Eisvei by L'Rabba. So meducha, so we're going to see this brayso a couple times. So a mortar, if there is some garlic on it, then you're allowed to move it through because of the garlic. But if there's no garlic on it, that's forbidden to use because a meducha, a mortar, which is used for a forbidden purpose. Normally, you grind things with it. So such a thing would be muksa, right? So you see that it's muksa. You can't use it for its own reason, for other reasons. This is Rabbi Nechemia. The Amar ain't kli nittel el l'tzarech tashmisha. A kli is only permitted to be used only for the reason that it was made for. So since, according to Rabbi Nechemia, who is more machmir, Rabbi Nechemia holds that ein echanami, right? If something is a mortar and pestle, right, which is used for grinding, that is only specifically to be used for grinding. Therefore, it's muksa on Shabbos. You can't use it for other reasons. So Eisvin on the kasha, so skip the parentheses, Vishavin, and both Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel agree. Shim Katzla Basar, Sha'asa Taltla, that after a person goes ahead and let's say he cuts meat on top of a pestle, Sha'asa Taltla, it's usher to go ahead and use it afterwards because now all it's used for normal, it's forbidden use, and since it's forbidden use, right? Its usage is not forbidden, is mutter on Shabbos, so therefore it's also to go ahead and move it. So same thing like we said before, and over here both Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai agree. So there's another teretz. So the Shnei like Rabbi Nechemia. So they thought to give the same teretz they just said before, like Rabbi Nechemia. The kli is only nittel l'tzarech tashmisha. But then, however, given the Shamil the Omar Rab Chanina bar Shlamia Mishmei Derav Hakol Modim. The Sichi, Zairi, Mizari, but everyone agrees when it comes to spindles and these other kalim, right, and something which is used to press and mallets, that those things they can't be used on Shabbos, right? The cave and the kapit alayum yachli ma'akom. Since the owners are makbid, they're very delicate. Their owners are care very much for their usage, right? And therefore they're worried that if they're used for other reasons, they could get damaged. So haninami yachli ma'akom. So over here, maybe this pestle is also the reason why it can't be moved. Everyone agrees is because it will get damaged, and something which is damaged will cause a loss to the owner. So therefore, it can't be. The owner is worried about the makom, and that's the reason why it's muksa. So Itmar. So started Rebbe Chia bar Abba Amar Rabbi Yochanan Karna shel Zahavim Shanino and Rav Shimon bar Abba Amar Karna shel Basavim Shanino. Right. So it's machlokes. Right. What we talked about hammers in terms of basically cracking. To use. So one holds a spice, right? A spice hammer, and the other one says no, a hammer belonging to a goldsmith. Right. That can be used to go ahead and crack open nuts. If you hold, you can go ahead and use a spice one, which is you have to be very careful not to damage it. Then kolshken oven, then certainly can be used for gold because they're not as particular with the spices. However, but if you hold that you're only allowed to go ahead, you're permitted to use that of a goldsmith. But if you're using for spices, then he's more makbid, and then that will not be able to be used on Shabbos. Fine, 2 dots. We said over there. In the Mishnah, Vesakush, Vesakarka, you have to go ahead and take some of the weaver's utensils and spear fruit to take fruit with it. So Tan Rabbanan, now a different part of it. So Paga Shatimna B'Teven, V'Chara Shatemna B'Gechalim. So let's say you have something which is inside other things that are muksa. For instance, right, it was in straw. Straw, if it wasn't, not used for animal feed, right? It's muksa on Shabbos because you can't go ahead and make it into anything, right? And also, if you have coals, also are not usable on Shabbos, they are muksa. So let's say you have something, you have thick cake that was buried underneath the coals, or bread or something underneath it, and you want to pull it out. So if the top is somewhat revealed, then you're allowed to go ahead and pull it out. V'imla, but if not, if it's all the way on the bottom, then asa taltala, then it's asa taltala, and Rabbi Yasser ben Tadai Omer. Teichlin b'kush b'chakar v'hei menorahs melein. You can go ahead and you can spear it and stick it with one of these utensils from a weaver, right? And when you go ahead and you pull it out, even though the muksa stuff is going to fall off, it's still mutter. In other words, since you're not moving it with your hand, you're not putting your hand there and grabbing the item, pulling out, right? But rather you go ahead and you stick it with some sort of spear, right? Some sort of sharp point, and then pull it out. So even though the straw will move or the coals will move, even though they're muksa, that is still mutter to do because he's moving them indirectly. And Rav Nachman, halacha Rabbi Elazar ben Tadai, the halacha is like Rabbi Elazar ben Tadai. So the main rock, so you're going to say the Savar of Nachman, tiltum and atzad, loishmei tiltum. Are you going to say that indirect tiltum is not considered to be moving? In other words, since he's indirectly moving them he's not moving it with his hand, he's not moving it over in order to take it out. Rather, right, he's poking it and pulling it out, and as he pulls things out, then things fall off. I've Rav Nachman, hi, pugla, milamala lamata shari, right? Mimata lamala asr. If you have a radish in the ground, now the radish, I guess, is sort of rounded. So if the wide part, right, is on top and the way it's in the ground, therefore, if I'm pulling out the wide top is on top, when I pull it out, no earth is really being, removed because the wider part, right, was on top, and therefore the hole is very large, and you're only moving the smaller part. But if it was upside down and only the narrow part is on top, and when I pull out the narrow part, so it makes a bigger hole as the larger part comes up, then I'm moving dirt. That would be usher to do. So what do you see over there? You see that moving dirt, right, indirectly is usher. So how did Rav Nachman? So Rav Nachman actually was chayzer from that. Fine. And then the Mishnah says mechad shel yad lito b'chulei. So also then using a needle, right, for needle. Normally needles are used to sew. One is not allowed to sew on Shabbos, but if he's using a needle to go ahead and remove a splinter, it's okay. So shalachlei. Rava Brid Rav Yosef Yomodena Rabbeinu teach us Rebbe Mechat Shenito Charara Uktamahu. Right, if a needle no longer has its eye or is very sharp, what is halacha there? So relate Tanisua Mechat Shayad Lito Boasakaitz. Right, so a needle can be used to go ahead and basically remove. Right, it can go ahead and remove a splinter. So what does it make a difference whether there's an eye in the needle? Remember, the eye in the needle is, you put the, the thread through in order to sew. Doesn't make a difference. You're using it for a different purpose. So therefore, who cares whether there's an eye or not? It's not muksa, right? It's not a problem at all. It says over there a mechet, a needle that no longer has the eye or its point is tahara. Right, so we see it's tahara, so it's no longer considered to be a kli. It's no longer considered to be a kli, and we just said it is a kli. So I'm going to buy tuma Shabbos karamis. What do you ask in case between tuma and Shabbos? Tuma kli ma'isa b'inan. When it comes to tuma, it has to be a kli ma'isa. It has to be used for its purpose. It's used for sewing. Well, it can be used for sewing, so therefore it's not considered a kli. Therefore, it will be tahara. It will not be tamei. And then in Shabbos, when it comes to Shabbos, lemidi dechazu b'inan v'hanami chazia. It has to be something which is usable, right? Has a usage, and this also has a usage to remove a splinter. So Amar Rava Ma de Kamoisiv Shapi Kamoisiv. However, it says Rava, no, the kasha was a good kasha. In other words, you want to ask a kasha, right? To say that you see that a needle, it doesn't have a use anymore, right? If it doesn't have a use anymore, and therefore it's no longer tamei, it's tahor. So if it's no longer used, right, then it's not a kli that could be. It should be muks on Shabbos because it's not considered to be a kli. Right? By the fact that by Tuma it's not considered a Kli and therefore it's Tahira. So too by Shabbos, it's not a Kli and therefore it should be a Muksa. So Meisvei Mechad ben Nakuva ben Shein Nakuva. Mutter Talta b'Shabbos. A needle, whether it has a hole or doesn't have a hole, is mutter to go ahead and move it on Shabbos. V'Amra Nakuva Elin and Tuma Bilvad. And the whole point of whether it has a hole in it, whether there's an eye in the needle or not, is only when it comes to tuma. So it appears to be, it's not one issue that continues over. Rather, it's two different issues, right? Shabbos, it's considered to be a kli, but tuma, it's not considered to be a kli. So tirgum abaya liba de rava, the gulme askina. We're talking about gulme. Gulme askina is another basically needles that were being made. Needles that were being made, and they had the sharp thing. They didn't put the eye in it yet. So right? And sometimes they'll go ahead and decide to go ahead and use it, right? And therefore, they'll go ahead and make it a kli and to use it in its current state, like something that does not need an eye, basically something to remove splinters. But if it was basically it was already considered to be made and it wasn't going to be used as a kli anymore, and they were never putting an eye in it, then people would go ahead and basically throw it away after its uses. In such a case, it was no longer considered to be a kli. So if when it was sometimes that after it was made like that, they might decide to put a needle in it, or to put an eye in the needle, right? Then it would be a keli. But after it was made, if they decide that there's no use anymore, then they're using it basically to remove splinters or something. Then it's going to be useless. It's not going to be a kli, and will never have that status, and therefore it will be muksa on Shabbos. Asabi Yanuka. What about another concept? Asabi Yanuka is basically to go ahead and to after a baby was born, I don't know if it's to stretch it or to straighten the baby, make sure all the limbs are nice and straight. So they used to go ahead and do that. That was a tactic that was done. So Rav Nachman also, he would say it was usher. It's usher to do it, right? It's similar to fixing. It's similar to treating, right, on Shabbos. Almost like fixing, like medication. And Rashi says the dami masakin, a person's similar to be like masakin, to fixing, like masakin kli. And so Rav Sheshes she says mutter. So Amar Rav Nachman Ami, how do we know that's aser? That's not within a mission. Ein aisin apiktuzin b'Shabbos. One can have aptuzin, right? That is go, I guess, one takes it in order to go ahead and throw up. Right, someone ate something, it was poison or whatever it was, not feeling well, right? So they want to throw up, so they drink something that causes their body to vomit. So you're not allowed to do it on Shabbos, Vasheshus. So I see you can't go over there and do that on Shabbos. You can't cause the body to vomit, right? You can't cause changes to the body. So too, you can't straighten the baby. It's the same concept of fixing the body. Vasheshus, Hasam, Lav Orche. Over there, Rashi says, no, that's not the normal way. It's not a normal way to go ahead and basically take something to induce vomiting. However, to go ahead and straighten a baby, that is something which was commonly done. So therefore, that would be mutter. And Rashi says, then how do I know that? It's not. And how do you know it's mutter? Mechad shal lita bos akites. So you're allowed to go ahead and take a needle to remove a splinter. Now, to remove a splinter, right, that's also you're sort of fixing, medicating, alleviating of the body by using a splinter. So on Shabbos, we see one can, quote unquote, cure the body by removing a splinter. So too, you should be able to go ahead and straighten a baby on Shabbos. Over there, Rav Nachman says, no, it's different. Over there, something is actually like sticking into the body, and therefore, it's not connected to the body. It's an outside thing, and therefore you can remove the outside thing. But when it comes to straightening the body, perhaps that's all one entity, and therefore you shouldn't be allowed to go ahead and straighten the body. Fine. Now Mishnah. So Mishnah says on the top of Kuf Chav Gimel Amudbeis, Kana Shel Zeisim Im Yesh Kesher Bereisha Mekabel Tuma V'Im Lav Mekabel Tuma. So we have a long stick, right, used for I guess in olives, so for making olive oil. So if there is a knot at the bottom, then the long stick that's used to mix it is makabel tuma, and if not, it's not makabel tuma. However, ben kach need to Shabbos. But either way, it can be moved on Shabbos. It's not considered to be muksa.
The only thing when you skip a day, you regress. Meaning,
why?
if you skip a day for straightening your leg, you go backwards.
If what?
You need certain number of weeks to do it. So each time you prolong it. You follow me? So I can see why it's not mutal on Shabbos, because it's really not irreversible damage. With a needle, it's infection, etc. With the leg, you just will extend the straightening. So you can skip Shabbos. You follow me?
Right, so that would be right, but that'll be the other right. So that would be the other svara to say that it would be.
You prolong the process with straightening the leg. With a needle, you are vulnerable for infection, and that's why it's dangerous. I think.
Gotcha. Okay, and that would be a reason why a baby daf over there is permitted by the
right.
cases.
That's why Rabbi. Right. That's why Rabbi Nachman say that's not.
Right. That would be right. Exactly. That would be the shita of Nachman.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right. Very good. back to the case of the reed, the long cane, the long stick that was used for olives. So either way, it's not muktzah on Shabbos. Only shala if tumor not if there's like a knot at the end, which is like basically sort of a receptacle. So Gemara says, "Amai, why should it make a difference? Why should we considered right? Amai." So the Gemara says, "Why is it mekabel tuma?" Right? Pshuta kliyetzu. It's something which is pshuta kliyetzu, but pshuta kliyetz ain't a mekabel tuma. Right? Any stick, right, normally, which is pshuta kliyetz, any normal sort of item, which is just, let's say, like a stick, is not mekabel tuma. My time to do the sack, because normally for something to be mekabel tuma, it has to be similar to the Torah says calls it similar to a sack. A sack has something which is can hold something. So normally we say vessels have to be able to contain something. Like a long stick does not contain anything. So why does it make a difference whether there's a knot at the end or not? So, in other words, no, because when you go ahead and he's mixing it around, and on the end, right, there is a knot, then he's able to go ahead and inspect the wine with it. Basically, he's using as a cleat. So therefore, there is a receptacle there at the end, and therefore, right, there's a receptacle at the end. So therefore, it has a usage, and therefore, that's the reason. If it has a receptacle at the end, if it has this knot at the end, then it's mekabel tuma. Otherwise, it is not. Fine. Next Mishnah. Next Mishnah, very yesodistic Mishnah. Rabbi Yosi Omer Kol HaKelim Nitlin Chutz Min HaMasar HaGadol V'Yesed Shemachrisha. So comes Rabbi Yosi and says basically something which we hold to today, and we'll soon see the progression of muksa as it was when it came to Shabbos. So Rabbi Yosi says all utensils are mutter to use on Shabbos to move, except for a large saw and a large, plow-like. That these two are very large, very expensive, and therefore they should not be used on Shabbos. But all other utensils are mutter to go ahead and move and use on Shabbos. So let's see what's going on. That was the opinion of Rabbi Yosi. So Amar Rav Nachman, Hai uchla dekatzri ki yesed shemachrisha damya. So he said also not only that, but also something which is used by a launderer as metal object. I either use this, to smoke it, to spice it, or it's used for hot water. But it's used for laundry purposes. It's expensive. So this ukla de kitzer, which is used by a launderer, right? It's called a launderer's riddle, right? Is like the plow that was used by for plow. And Amar Abaye, Charba dushpich v'sekina di. So he says also, when it comes to the knife that's used by a tanner, very sharp knife, or one that's used for a butcher, the chatzina denagri kiyasa shemachresha, or you have basically a carpenter, also his sharp utensils. Also, all of these are similar to a plow or similar to the saw that's used to cut large beams. These are very expensive. Have to be very sharp, and they can't, use it for other purposes. And therefore, since it's basically mukta machmas chisron kis, right? They don't want any loss of money. So then that is considered to be something which is muksa for that reason. So Tan Rabbanan. Now here comes this Bryce, a very sadistic. In the beginning, only 3 things were not muksa on Shabbos. Everything was muksa on Shabbos except for 3 things. Maktsua shel devela. You have this maksua, a knife which is used for devela for fig cakes. The zuma lisra shakadera, also something which is a ladle used to get the foam off the top of pots. And the sakin katana shalga b'shulchan, and basically a table knife. All these things are mutter to use. Everything else is muksa. However, hitiru v'chazru v'hitiru v'chazru v'hitiru. Right? They mattered, at sheyamru, until they got to the point where they said, all kelim are permitted to be used on Shabbos except for the large saw and the plow, which are very delicate, and those can't be ruined. So in the beginning, everything was Aser, only 3 things were mutter, and then everything became mutter at their chayzer. So what's going on is my hitiru v'chazru v'hitiru v'chazru v'hitiru chazru v'hitiru. So what does it mean? That they mattered, then they mattered again, they mattered again. So Rabbi hitiru davar shemalachta leheter letzarech gufo. First, they matter something whose usage is mutter to use. Something has a mutter usage, so therefore they mattered it, right? They mattered that. And and then they said not only the tzarech gufo, not only for the using it for its reason, because its purpose is usable on Shabbos, and then they mattered even something which is mutter right? It's mutter to use on Shabbos, but you're not going to use it for that reason. I use it because I want to. I need the space over there, right? So in the beginning, right, that the space where that mutter object was, right, you couldn't move it. I can only move it if I'm going to use it. If I'm not going to use it, then I shouldn't move it on Shabbos. And then we said, no, you can even move it if you want the space. And then they came and they said, you know what? Even as something whose work is forbidden to do on Shabbos, right? If you want to go ahead and use it for a mutter dika reason, then you can go ahead and move it, but you can't move it for its space. And still, it was only they permitted only to use it if you only use it in one hand. But if you move it two hands, it wouldn't be permitted. Then they say, you know what? Even with two hands, all these all things can be moved on Shabbos, even with two hands. So Amar Le Rava says Rava on this. Now, that was a biased interpretation. Now comes Rava, so he says Michli Hitiruk Tani, right? It says over there they are matir. So Mali Tzarech Gufa, Mali Tzarech Mekamo. They're the first Hitiru, right? Why would it be if they're matir it? Why would they only matir to use it for the permissible usage? But they were not permitted for its space. In other words, if they want to go ahead and use it for its space, why would they not move it? Doesn't make sense. So Ella, rather, he has a new interpretation of this brisa. Ella Amarava, Hitiru The first one was they permitted something who had the permissible usage, whether to use it for then, or if I just needed space, I want to take it off the table, then you're allowed to go ahead and do it. And then they had a new heter, one called Mechamat Sel. Now, it's to go ahead and to move something out of the sun into the shade. In other words, something is sitting in the sun, perhaps it will get ruined. He doesn't want it to get ruined. So am I allowed to go ahead and move that item? I don't need to use the spot where it's at, and I don't need to go ahead and use it for any reason, but I'm moving it because I don't want it to get damaged. So it's a new thing called chamatzel. I'm moving it for the sake of its purpose, right? For the sake of it, for this kli. So in the beginning, it wasn't permitted. And then they said, and then they said, you know what? Even to go ahead and save it, then it is mutter. And then they said, no, it's even mutter to go ahead and move so much of davers from lachal yisr. And then they say, okay, some of whose usage is usher. So if its usage is usher, then you can use it for a permissible usage, or you can go ahead if you need a space. But if you want to go ahead and save that item, it would be forbidden. However, right, but that was only be something which is moved by one person. But if it's moved by two people, it would still be usher. And then it says at the end, then they said, no, all the can move on Shabbos except for these two things, even something which is moved by two people, then it would be mutter to do, like a couch, right? That would not be usher to move. Then even that would be mutter to use, except for the two the items that were mentioned in the Mishnah, because those were very delicate and be muksa machmas chisron kis. So Eisve Abaye, Abaye Sakash and Rav, it says I meducha. It says the more imyesh bashu metalton oisa v'mav metalton oisa, right? So it says, there by a mortar, right? If there's some garlic on it, you can move it because it's garlic. And if there's nothing on it, then you wouldn't be able to move it. It's muksa, right? You can't be able to move it because it's muksa. Right, so so he says, no, we're talking about mecham letzel. The reason why it's muksa, right, is before. In other words, it wasn't because it's l'tzarech makama. L'tzarech makama, you're right. They should be able to move l'tzarech makama. So the reason is not l'tzarech makama. The reason why is because it was going to get destroyed by sitting in the sun, and that was the case. If you're going to move it for its own sake, right, for the sun to the shade, that was the reason why it would be muksa in that case. Right, and Eisve, V'shavin, and we also said earlier, we had this brisa that both Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai agree. Shim katzav labasa shas latalta. That once, if he already went ahead and cut meat on it, he can't go ahead and move it anymore. But how can he not move anymore? You see over there that you can't move it from its place. Right? He said, no, it really, if you need the spot, you can move it. If you needed it to use it for a different reason, you can move it. But if it's for the purpose of saving the item, then that was when we said mecham letzel would be forbidden. And Amar Rabbi Chanina, the Mei Nechemia ben Chachliel Nishneis Mishnazu. The Chsiv, it says, no, it was when we said that, when all these items were aser, that was during the years of Nechemia ben Chachli, right, during, right, the Chsiv, the Pasuk says, so we said during the Shabbos that people were pressing wine They were doing malacha of wine on Shabbos, and they were basically harvesting from the fields, and there was a lot of chilul Shabbos, and that was the reason why they made these different decrees, because people weren't following, they didn't permit small things of muksa, right? It was very machmer. So therefore, since people didn't follow that, they didn't follow anything. So therefore, they were more makil years later in order to prevent malacha by allowing them to do more things which were not muksa. It prevented them from doing malacha. And Amar Rav Elazar, so says Rav Elazar, so kanim, makalois, glustra, maducha. 4 items, right? We're still going to talk these kanim, the poles that were in the shulchan, makalois, right? Long sticks they used to go ahead and hold, right? Glustra, these small knobs in the bottom by hinges by the doors, and meducha and mortars, all of them before the hataras kalim, right? That which we had brises that were said about them. So all those were said, kulam, or all the brises that were said about these 4 things, which are about to bring 4 completely different brises, right? That was kaitim hataras kalim nishin. That was before all kalim were permitted. In other words, we're going to bring brises basically said that those were muksa, but that which is under muksa, those were earlier teachings that we're talking about during the period when muksa was aser. But since, as we just saw, that brisa from Tan Rabbanan, right, over the years, right, they allowed more and more in order to prevent chilul Shabbos. So that which we say those things were aser, that was during the, like the prohibition years. That was during the years when it was forbidden to go ahead and use. But now those things are mutter. But what were those brises are talking? What's the shaykhs? What are you talking about? So kanim. So the first one, by the tubes that were used. So what were these? So the Tanakh loisi that kanim lo yinitan derechas Shabbos. So you can't go ahead and arrange the tubes in the shulchan, and you can't go ahead and remove them. There's not derechas Shabbos when it comes to the bread. In other words, those have to remain there, and you can't be used on Shabbos, right? It's not. So that was that, and because over there, those utensils were not permitted to use on Shabbos. And makala is the case of sticks, the tanan. Makala is dakin chalukim hayusham, right? They used to have long, thin sticks. Manicha ksefo shavakaza chaver. They used to go ahead and carry 2 people carry each end on their shoulders. The toilet mafshit, and then the animal that they just checked basically would be hanging from the from the pole that they were carrying. And Rebbe Lazar Omer, if Erev Pesach came out on Shabbos, and then they had the animals. So what would they do? These sticks are muksa. So meniach yada kasav chaver yada chaver. Each one person will walk behind somebody else and put their arm on their shoulder and sort of make their arm like the stick. The toilet mafshid, and then from there they would go ahead and hang an animal, but they would not go ahead and use the sticks because the sticks were muksa. So we had the tubes were muksa by the shulchan. The sticks were muksa to go ahead and hang these animals that are shakbid and glustra, and in terms of the knobs by the bottom of the door, right? So it's not nagashesh but roisha glustra. So it says if there is a bolt that's put into the ground, that's how you used to go ahead and and have the door would move on it, right? And if there was a bolt, right? If the sheyesh barosa and the end has a knob on it, so B'shua Omer shumta mina pesach v'zev v'talei b'chaver b'Shabbos, right? You can go ahead and drag it from one door and put on another one on Shabbos. And Rabbi Tarfon Omer harehu k'gol kelim u'metaltem l'chatzer. No, you don't have to go ahead and drag it from this door, right, to go ahead and hang it from another door. Rabbi Tarfon says it's like all the kelim they can go ahead and take into the chatzer. That was the case of the glustra, and the meducha, the case of the mortar, hadamra. That was the case we said. So all these cases, which by meducha we said, but the mortar says if there was any garlic on it, can be moved. There's no garlic on it, then it's aser. So all these cases, when we said it was aser, the bolt is aser to move normally, and the mortar if there's no garlic on it, and by the tubes of the shulchan, there's muksa and the sticks. All those 4 cases we said is aser only during the time when a lot of things were aser. But as soon as they were hitiru v'chazru v'hitiru v'chazru v'hitiru, all these things were now permitted. And Amar Rabbi Mimai, why do you say that these were all done during the times of the mutter years? Maybe now they're still usher, right? Maybe these evenings were tried afterwards. And kanim, time of my, what's the reason why kanim over there, the tubes, maybe we're still, even now, shouldn't be used? Time of my. So mishum nefushe, but high port to late mafesh. Now, the reason for the tubes is because of they were there because they didn't want the breads to get moldy. The lechem apani that were put on there to get moldy, right? But in other words, these are only used on Shabbos. So the short time on Shabbos, maybe there was no usage. We have no concern of things going bad. And my colors, in terms of sticks, why should the sticks be usher to use if Erev Pesach was on Shabbos? It could be like because they can go like Rabbi Elazar and use their hands instead of the sticks, right? There's no usage. And in glustra, and what about a bolt with if it has a knob at the end? So we say like Rabbi Yana, can be like Rabbi Yana, Rabbi Yana. But chatzah shenim revas. I was talking about a chatzah. There was no error. The reason why they couldn't go ahead and move it is not necessarily because it was muksa, but rather because we were talking about moving into a chatzah that did not have an eruv, and therefore, and Rabbi Shua Savar, and then it's Rabbi Shua who was the one who said. You can go ahead and drag it from one to the other. So Rabbi Shua Savar Teich HaPesach Kelefnim Dami. He says, no, anything in the doorway is like inside. And therefore, it's like a person who goes ahead and moves something from a house into a chatzir, and therefore he's allowed to go ahead and move and drag it there. And Rabbi Tarfon Savar Teich HaPesach Kol Dami. Rabbi Tarfon says, right, that can move in the chatzir, he holds that within the Pesach is already outside, and therefore it's not moving from inside to outside. It's already considered to be like it's outside. And umana the chatzir kamatalta, all right, and therefore he's taken he's only taken from a chatzir to a chatzir, right, which is mutter, right. And meducha in the case of the mortar, why is that over there? Why would that still be aser? That would be Reb Nechemia. That would be the opinion of Reb Nechemia, who said earlier, right. Reb Nechemia's opinion was that you can only move something for its usage, and yet you go ahead and move it for another reason. You can't move it to protect it. So maybe all these cases that we taught were prohibiting it. It was not necessarily during the years when everything was usher. Rather, it could even be now, according to his opinion, that perhaps all these brises would still be usher and the rules still hold true. All right, we'll stop here at the Mishnah. I want you to have a wonderful day and stay safe. Be well.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Yeah.